the hell is it? Oh. Somebody lost a couple of windows. All right, plan. We just have one more course to get down and then grid on top of that, and then we will be starting on the paver pad on top of the steps. It's gonna be a busy day. So that's all I got. Let's just get on into it.
Yeah, busy day's a little bit of an understatement. Before we're done today, we're gonna have this back patio built up. We're gonna show you how we build a raised paver patio. There's some details to that I wanna make sure to point out. And we're also gonna build a semicircular staircase that you see here using straight retaining wall blocks. And there's a couple details in there that I think are pretty important that I'd like to point out in case you guys are attempting to do this on your own. I'm just gonna share our experiences, what we found that works. Because, you know, it's not just in the brickwork and doing a really nice job there, but it's structurally you've got to be careful, because a lot of time these raised paver patios or these raised things, they tend to explode or fall apart or settle or have problems down the road. And you see this geogrid that's laying in here? That really is the easiest way to avoid any settlement issues down the road. So you're gonna see that we use plenty of that.
All right, we got a little bit of a gap here up against the house. I'm just gonna get some spray foam in there, just to prevent, you know, the sand and all that stuff washing out in there. We just need a little bit of a barrier to keep the sand and whatnot on this side where it's supposed to be.
Now that's not a minor detail. That's a pretty big detail. Also, that little bit of a gap is a home for rodents, bugs. Those things will burrow their way in, and then they'll keep going underneath the rest of your patio and create problems.
All right, we'll let that sit up, and then obviously whatever comes up that way, we'll just cut off with the old razor blade.
Now, one of the things I've got to point out is that we're actually building the majority of this raised patio using recycled class 5 and not sand. You will see us use sand, but only as a leveling agent and only under 1 inch in depth. This recycled class 5 is what we're using for the majority of the structural fill. Do you see the 2 rows of blocks right there? This is one of those details that's easy to pass by. Remember those 2 rows of blocks. The second row of blocks will actually have another row of blocks on top of it, and that will help distribute the weight of the actual stairs themselves.
All right, next run is in. Everything's glued down. This is gonna be our next step here. So next, class 5 packet, grid, another course.
So that second layer of blocks, actually from this side, you can see we put the top layer on it, and that just distributes the weight and keeps you from getting any, because you will get settlement just from the foot traffic. People tend to be creatures of habit, right? And they go the same feet, same spots every time. And after a while, you'll actually see where one block is down, the other block is down, the other block is down. And when you do it this way, it helps to keep that from happening.
Class 5 is packed. I think we're a little low over here still. Yeah, that's got to come up about a 1/2 inch. So what we're doing for the sand, so we need 2.5 inches down from the top of the block, and then we're gonna put our pipes down there. Like I said, we're about a 1/2 inch too low here, so we'll have to sprinkle some in there. Get the pipes. We gotta cut one to fit through here, so that then, you know, we can screed it on either side, get that sand nice and level.
So you don't want too much sand. And it's easy to go overboard on the sand, but really less sand is better because there's no binding agent to it. So although it's non-organic and it will stay in place, since it doesn't have a binding agent to it, Mother Nature can move it around pretty easy on you.
Okay, next bit. Class 5's all leveled, got the pipe all level where it needs to be. So yeah, it's just sand. We'll get that all leveled out.
So we only want 3/4 to 1 inch of sand, so he will go right to the top of that pipe. So as he lays this sand out, you'll see that he uses that as his indicator. If he needs to go up higher, then the sand has to come out and more class 5 has to go in. You can't cheat and fill that whole thing up with sand, because it just tends to move. It tends to without the binding agent, it can shift. So if you look closely as he's doing this, look between the bricks themselves. Do you see right there? What I was saying earlier when he was putting the styrofoam in the corner is all those nooks and crannies have to be filled, because if those nooks and crannies aren't carefully filled up, right here, that is a wide open invitation for all of the rocks to slide and shift in, and that can create a settlement issue down the road. That RT50 can lift a pallet with no problem. That's a pretty small machine.
With how the bulldozers are going on, or caps, whatever you want to call them, on that radius, which is, you know, the outside of the step, every single one of those is going to need to be cut. So instead of doing that, inhale saw, we got one of these bad boys.
I think we got to invest in one of those.
That is going to save us a freaking ton of time. Then it's looking like they're all going to be the same cut so far. So with that, we can just set a jig and bang them out.
So yeah, we don't own this. It looks like from the sticker on the side of it, the boys just picked it up from Home Depot, I think it says on it. But I've heard IQ makes a nice one. I don't know who else makes good ones.
All right, here's what's going on. So we got these all spaced. And we gotta cut every single one of those. So what we're gonna do to speed it up, Blaine's gonna cut, and I'm gonna just feed them blocks.
It's not a lot of cutting that they have to do, but it's every brick that has to be done. And what I'm actually mean is they're only cutting the back side of each brick off so that they can get the spaces to fit flush and tight.
We got our stairs all cut, or the bullnose for the stairs all cut, and those are good to go. So I'm gonna glue this middle course in while Blaine is working on these goofy corners, and then we'll start gluing.
This concrete adhesive is incredibly strong and will actually pull the bricks apart before the glue pulls apart. But you will see sometimes concrete adhesive fails, and that is when guys have dust on the blocks, or if the blocks are wet or even slightly moist. If the blocks are clean and dry, you will pry the concrete apart before you'll wreck the adhesive. I always try to encourage my customers to envision themselves walking up to their front door with their arms full of groceries, and they need a place to set it down. Is your landing pad big enough to handle that? Or if you have 3 or 4 people at one time knocking on your door, is there enough room for them all to stand? I mean, it's not really science. It's a matter of what works for you guys, or those guys. when I'm actually laying a project like this out originally, I never use paint either. I always use garden hoses, because if you paint it and then you want to switch something around, you're stuck with the paint lines on in your ground. But a garden hose, you can move it. And then I actually encourage my customers to not just lay their hardscaping out with a garden hose, but then to mock up their furniture. Are you going to have a table? Are you going to have chairs? You may not own them, but do you have cardboard boxes? Do you have something that can duplicate a table and chairs? And kind of start to put things in place into the space that you envision, and does it actually work? Because it's easier to do with the garden hose and cardboard boxes than it is when it's to this point and you're like, hey, I want to add another 2 feet that way. So this packer happens to have a rubber pad that will attach to the bottom of the plate to keep that steel plate from marring the top of the pavers. But if you have a packer and you don't happen to have a rubber flap like that, well, you can use a piece of carpet, you could use a mud flap, you can use anything just to keep that steel plate from scuffing the top of your pavers. Blaine likes to leave his pavers up. Watch, you can actually see him sink. He likes to leave his pavers up just a smidgen to count for the settlement. That's packer's not broken, that's just the plate.
The steps and patio are all done. Here's what we got. And those ones aren't glued in yet, so there's a little bit of gaps. It's not going to be like that when it's done. But this course and that course, they're all done. Well, if you remember me saying earlier, we weren't going to glue these yet because we have to run the patio that's going to be out here right up against there, and that's just going to make it easier for us if these aren't in the way.
There you go. That looks good. They did a good job. Hard to see when they're spinning the camera like that. That's our video for today, guys. I hope you pulled something out of it. We're calling this one the Scooby Project. We've got a long way to go. This is a pretty massive project. Frankie and I just got done harvesting firewood. I'm wiped out. Two days. I think we got 7 cord pulled out of the wood. I mean, like, trees pulled out, blocked up, cut into firewood, delivered, and ready to go, because Frankie heats his entire home with firewood, and so does my uncle, and we had to get that all ready for those guys. And Tim wrapped up the boulder retaining wall. Schweitzer Chicken Plucker building's coming down the pipeline, and we've got more stuff coming. Actually, we got some really cool stuff. And that's what we've got for you on this one. God bless you guys. Go get them. And hopefully we'll see you on another one.